this might age terribly, and this is, you talk about dating things and dating or whatever, and this might be the worst take ever, but I am interested to see how Megalopolis,
me too,
like when we're sitting at this table a year from now, and we're talking about you know, what the same industry, like what is the industry, whatever, what, you know, I'm interested of what that film's impact will be. And if it was just like, oh, this is a hype thing, I would understand. Like, but the track record is there. If anybody was going to do something that was like, hey, this is my swan song, I'm passing this torch, or I'm laying down this challenge to the next generation, pick it up or don't, it's here. It would be Coppola. I mean, he redefined film 5 times. 4 times. What? So you had Godfather 1, Godfather 2, Conversation, dual Oscar year. Apocalypse Now. I mean, he's just, and then his daughter has, you know, has had an amazing career. Like,
absolutely.
If there's anybody who kind of is, you can't tell the story of cinema without, he's one of them.
Well, who could break this this zeroing in on commerce and nostalgia and low risk.
He has the reputation. He has the name value. He has the, I mean, he just has everything of like, you know, I don't think somebody could come in from left. Of course somebody could come in from left field. But like, you know, and then he has this idea like, oh, I want to spend $120 million of my own money to make a film with like this experimental style of cinema that, you know, I'm pioneering, and maybe it's not some crazy, like maybe it's, but you don't hear a lot of filmmakers looking to what the future is going to be. What does the future look like? The future of this medium. What is that? And so I'm excited to hear a master who's done it. Who's made maybe 4 of the greatest films of all time. I'm excited to hear what he has to say about this is the future. This is what I want. I think the future could look like. And just get other people talking about like what the future. But you talk about breaking that mold. And you know, I sent you the one review that got me pumped, where it was like, this has no commercial. This is the most expensive film with 0 commercial ambitions I've ever seen. And like that gets me pumped. Like
same here. I mean,
and then you look at the letterbox and it's just like a square. I mean, it is like as many 0-star reviews as there are 5-star reviews, and like all of them in between. So I'm just like, I'm like, okay. Cause I, you know, you think back to some of his, like, I'm sure I would, what did Apocalypse Now, if that was in a letterbox world, what would that look like?
Absolutely.
What would The Godfather look like? What would The Conversation look like? Like, I don't know.
I'd be curious. I don't know how
this take might age super poorly.
I don't know how polarizing those movies were when they came out. I could see maybe The Conversation being a bit more polarizing than Apocalypse Now and The Godfather. You know, it's tough because I feel like Megalopolis, just from watching the trailer, is just more bold, maybe a little bit more experimental, maybe a little bit more out there. And I think you get a little bit of that between Apocalypse Now and The Godfather. The Godfather, and I hope this doesn't sound, this doesn't make me sound stupid, to be honest, but it's just like straight up storytelling. It is just a family, and this happens, and he does this, and then this person's betrayed, and this person's murdered. It's a little simpler to digest.
I think there's like the themes are strong though, like power corrupting. You have this idea of like generational drop off of like, you know, one generation loses the ambition that the previous generation carried. I think there's these ideas of like family conflict.
100%.
Like I think there's deeper themes at work in the movie.
And I'm not trying to make it sound like The Godfather is a simplistic movie.
Oh no, for sure. But I mean, I would even give you though, with what you just, like, you watch Godfather 2, it's a different level. Like, the writing's a different level. In terms of like, you talk about like Shakespearean. Like it. I would. And I would say that
Apocalypse Now has a lot more. Much more poetic. It's much more like, at first glance, like, I'm not quite sure how this relates, you know, these moments, like Duvall's fixation on surfing for like 25, 30 minutes of the movie.
Who's the writer for Apocalypse Now? Because I know I just remember either watching a documentary or reading like something about, but I mean, he was like I know he could just flow into styles of writers.
Yeah.
Like he could do Melville, or he could do like, if you can just flow into Melville,
right,
you're talented.
Yeah.
Right. You're a talented writer. Like,
but for me, ultimately, if you show me the, you know, Godfather on VHS and Apocalypse Now on VHS, not to, you know, destroy the original aspect ratios of those films,
flying through
I think I'm going to go for Apocalypse Now just because.
Is it because it's more of an open experience?
Yeah, there's stuff that you just kind of, it's just not as easy to nail down. It's a vibe. It's more poetic.
Those are the most rewatchable.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that, you know, and my hope is that Megalopolis is evocative of that. My biggest fear with that movie is it's very didactic, that it's going to be hitting me over the head with what we're doing wrong and what it's going to cost us. And I'm just very worried.
I don't think it will.
I don't think
I could be wrong.
I hope it's
but
not.
I don't think it will be.
I don't think.
And I mean, trust me, you know, my radar is as high on that as my, like, I mean, I think there's even, there's movies that most people are like, oh, that was fine. And I'm like, I fuck that movie. Like,
but if that movie has that sort of,
and
lyrical,
that's why I kind of said like, hey, this could age poorly, because there's a chance, because similar vibe from the trailer, where I'm like, I could watch this, and I might be like, I hated this. I hated everything about this. So, but no, I mean, I'm with you. I think anything with a more poetic nature has more of a runway.
Yeah.
I mean, all of the movies that I love revisiting, typically,
absolutely, for me too.
More. I mean, but It's a Wonderful Life. We just talked about that. Like, that is as straightforward as it gets.
I know, there's something about something like A Wonderful Life, like Star Wars, these movies that the archetypes and the connection to our primitive emotional state, and then the music.
I would make the argument for Godfather that it kind of fits into that, with this idea that there are a little bit of like,
and I would agree,
a little bit more of a thematically rich,
absolutely.
Subtext.
But with the Godfather, you've got it all too. You've got the performances, you've got the soundtrack, the music, all of that stuff. I mean, I was just watching on VHS, of course, Once Upon a Time in the West. Have you watched that Ennio Morricone documentary?
I haven't.
I'm like, I was just watching.
I'm a big Ennio
I was watching
Morricone
the trailer, and I'm like, feeling all the feelings, especially Once Upon a Time in the West, which is a movie I came to late in life. And you know,
well, it's interesting because those Leone westerns almost they introduce a more poetic quality to the filmmaking, than what they almost they do the western. It's a pretty straightforward western.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, it is, good guy, bad guy.
Yep. Are the archetypes?
Good guy, bad guy. Medium guy. Yep. All the archetypes are there. In the Good, Bad, Ugly trilogy, you've got Clint Eastwood just being the badass, but through how they use the camera, how they use just let this breathe a little.
Yes, the time, the
it
patience.
Introduces a poetic quality that doesn't exist in other westerns.
Yeah, and it's so sort of like to me, it's like a clear poet. I can't
poetic,
say it. Clear poeticism. It's just poetry.
Yeah.
A clear poetry. And what I love too about Apocalypse Now is it's more ambiguous. It's more nebulous. It's more vibey. It's more sort of like, I don't know what this is, but I'm like,
Apocalypse Now is more like Whitman, whereas Once Upon a Time in the West is more like Bukowski.
Yeah. So there's such an appreciation of that, and again, like Star Wars and It's a Wonderful Life, like they hit on those emotional cues and the tools of the filmmaking from the music. I mean, It's a Wonderful Life just being about Christmas, and then you're watching it around Christmas time, which is a whole other highly heightened, sensitive vibe to be in.
And you talk about a masterpiece of screenwriting.
Yeah.
And just like, It is. I mean, at the from the
100%,
time, it is 100%. Like, it is buttoned up. It is done with craft and skill at an extraordinarily high level.
Especially because it's doing something very difficult. It's bridging 3 generations of this person's life.
Yeah.
Right?
Frank
His childhood.
Frank Capra's 2 shots too.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I don't know.
Pretty good.
I've gone on a little like I've literally just those are nice. He's a master of that. Master of the 2 shot.
Yeah, so those movies connect up to those real powerful emotions in us, whereas a movie like The Godfather goes to some deeper layers. And I think also, and not that It's a Wonderful Life holds up a mirror to the darker aspects of our personality. Part of what gets me so emotional about It's a Wonderful Life is how I can often get caught up in the business of life and take for granted the people that are around me, especially my wife and my kids. And that movie, after having kids, hits on a whole other level because of, the similarities between us, perception of struggling financially, his hopes and dreams of exploring the world and living the life of a National Geographic explorer, all that stuff. And same thing with Star Wars. So much of that is connected to not only the archetypal characters, but archetypal emotions. And what I love, again, about The Godfather, it starts going under those layers. Yeah. And then Apocalypse Now, for me, goes even farther below
Apocalypse
those
Now borders
those
on like 2001.
Yeah.
In terms of just like,
and that,
you project, like, here's a canvas, project what you see. But I think it's interesting what you just said about It's a Wonderful Life and Star Wars, where it's like archetypal, but it evolves.
Yeah.
Time. It's like, I mean, I don't know, excuse like the corny metaphor. It's just what happens to be right here, but it's like time changes it. There are new flavors that are introduced. You catch something you didn't catch before. You see something new, or you just process it through a completely. I've processed that film now over the course of like 2.5 decades. Like, there are lenses. Like, there are many different lenses that I've viewed that film through, and you might go 5 years where you're like, okay, I've seen it, and then suddenly the 6th year, it's like you had some kind of life-changing event or occurrence that happened to you, and it's like, it's almost, the movie is almost a mirror of, wow, this was a significant year.
It had been a golden afternoon, and I remember having the familiar conviction that life was beginning over again with the summer and summer.